FPÖ TV aktuell. Wir zeigen, was andere verschweigen. Patriotisch, direkt und ohne Zensur. FPÖ TV aktuell.
Das tödliche Schussattentat auf Charlie Kirk, Gründer der konservativen Bewegung Turning Point USA, ist der jüngste schreckliche Vorfall, wo ein konservativer Politiker Opfer von Gewalt, Vandalismus und Mord geworden ist. Donald Trump wurde 2024 gleich zweimal zum Ziel von Anschlagsversuchen. Im Fall von Kirk allerdings blieb es leider nicht beim Versuch. Der 31-jährige Familienvater hinterlässt 2 Kinder und eine Ehefrau. Ich bin jetzt verbunden mit einem langjährigen Weggefährten von Charlie Kirk. Und zwar bin ich hier verbunden mit Steve Slepcevich. Hello, Steve. First of all, I would like to say how sorry we are for your loss. You've been friends with Charlie Kirk for many years. You've been working together. What was the basis of your friendship?
Well, the basis of the friendship started when the Biden administration took over office. And at that time, they completely changed the secure border that Trump had put in place and opened up the borders where hundreds of thousands, actually in the millions, started coming through and pouring through our borders. I was contacted back at that time by border sheriffs, BORTAC, which is the Border Patrol, Department of Public and Safety, because they were getting overrun. And I run a private security company and also have a highly sophisticated drone team. So what we started doing is actually running night operations with our thermal cameras and tracking the cartels that were pushing drugs, fentanyl through the border, the trafficking of women and children and families through the border, and just the many people that were coming in, the Chinese nationals, the West Africans, and a lot of the countries that absolutely hate America in the Middle East, you know? So at the very beginning, we were out there helping them apprehend many of these criminals throughout that whole region. We were the ones that exposed the rape trees that were out there, the bodies that were dying in the desert, the prayer rugs, the people that were coming through completely unvetted, unchecked, and literally getting right into the interior all over the United States. We were at the very beginning with the whole January 5th and 6th during the entire situation that happened at the Capitol. We had 33 of our medics down there, our security teams down there, and we were seeing how things were changing in America like literally overnight. So there was a lot of issues that came at that time. And Charlie and myself were speaking on a tour called the Reawaken America Tour that was run with General Flynn and Clay Clark. And we were going back to the grassroots, right? Going to the churches because venues wouldn't host us. And I was talking about the border security. Charlie was talking about the values in America changing. He was talking about the colleges, how they're indoctrinating the kids at the colleges, the systematic process of how the globalists were operating, right? And so we were bringing this type of stuff to light. And as I was posting and he was posting and we were sharing in this whole process, my social media's channels completely got deleted, like literally no warning. And it was the censorship machine on overload. And so working with Charlie reached out and said, hey, you know what? I want to go to the border. I need to show the American people what's going on. You've been working it extensively. Can you go down with my team and show what's going on? And absolutely, I dumped a ton of footage to them from our body cams, our drone videos. And then we went multiple nights down there so that he could see it himself, because Charlie was one who didn't want the angle of the camera. He said, I just want it impartial, unbiased, unfiltered. Let the American people make their own choice and their own decision of what's really going on. But it's important that we create the awareness of what's really happening down there. You know, regardless of the fact that mainstream media was given a completely different narrative to it. And so I got to know Charlie Kirk really well, not only speaking on many stages together and going on these different tours that we did with the Reawaken America tour. We also did the Rescue the Republic, where my team provided all the security, the private security, all the VIP security for him, for Tulsi, for Bobby, for all the different speakers, Jordan Peterson, Russell Brand. And it was, again, this conservative movement. And so in the process, I really got to know him to be a no nonsense, a great father, a great husband, right? A wonderful American patriot. And all he really was doing was putting his faith, right? His freedom of speech, right? And all these type of things in front of the people and opening the conversation to a civil debate. Like if you watch Charlie on many of the debates where people are debating him, and even if the person is getting flustered and the crowd was getting loud, they're booing the person that's debating Charlie, he would from a very kind space, from a loving space, go, hold on. Let him gather his thoughts. I know let him gather his thoughts and let him speak, let him share, because this is how we heal the divide, right? So somebody who is willing to reach across the aisle and have a civil, not yelling conversation, and he was so instrumental because on the first college campuses that he went to, I remember he was only given out maybe 100 hats, maybe 15 to 100 hats, right? And within 4 years, he was at a point where he was giving out 5,000 to 10,000 hats were going out, right?
Okay.
The crowd had swelled. And many people I know, including my daughter, who went from being completely brainwashed, on, the whole BLM movement, the whole movement of defund the police and, that whole narrative, to changing from that liberal mindset to a completely conservative, seeking her spiritual faith and becoming conservative. And Charlie Kirk was one of the ones that reached across that aisle and touched the college students, right? And he made them question the orthodoxies, right? The religion that is being taught in these schools.
Mm. Steve, would you say that it is a general trend towards conservatism, which can be observed at the moment, that the trend is just changing to the right in general, or is it just Charlie himself and his special qualities which made him so successful and popular with young people?
Well, I think that there's a movement happening because here's the reality of it. The results from the left, the extreme left, it doesn't look good, right? When a person can't identify what a woman is, there's a big problem there, right? And you can see that the instability that doesn't teach about family, the nuclear family, how that's important, right? How it's important to have a job, have a trade, right? That not necessarily do you need a degree in South African, lesbian studies of art of some sort, that degree is going to be you're somebody, So how he would preface it was really kind of going back to the core of American values, right? His Christian faith, which he led from, and I feel that there's a shift happening just globally because at the end of the day, like I said, the results don't work because based on results, where they're headed is not a good place. And more people go, wait a minute. I do want to get married. I do want to have kids. There's value in what he's saying, So yeah, I feel that the shift is happening and I feel there's more of us than there are of them, but they control the media with the money to make it appear that there's more of them. I always say it's us. We are the 8 billion. They're but a few thousand.
But they still hold some kind of power, obviously.
Yeah, listen. America thinks that it's the one that runs the world. It doesn't. It's out of Geneva, right? So when you see how the globalists operate from, hey, we're Switzerland, we're neutral. Well, that's what the castle always says, right? The castle wants the people fighting among each other. Why? Because as long as they're fighting each other, they're not coming over the castle walls.
Yeah, that's very interesting what you're saying. Another question, which is related to that, Donald Trump said that rhetoric from the radical left contributed to the shooting death of his close ally Kirk. Kirk helped him to win elections. He was instrumental. You said it yourself. And Elon Musk wrote, "The left is the party of murder." Who are these people deemed responsible for the growing violence? Who are they?
Well, if you see when someone's thought process is challenged, right, and they don't have an honest, clear civil debate, when they get to a point where they're embarrassed, they want to be so right about their position that at the end of the day, only thing that they have left at the point of where there is no common sense left is to go and take a weapon up and murder somebody. Charlie said it. He knew the threat was there. We had many conversations of it. As a matter of fact, I was with him a few weeks ago in Dallas, where we had spent quite a bit of time and had talked about a lot of different concerns about how the situation was starting to heat up, you know? But it's like this. The people want to play the right-wrong game, right? And people don't like to feel like they're wrong. Even in the medical stuff that's happening in America, think of all the pediatricians, the doctors, the nurses, the hospitals, the pharmaceutical companies that have been telling everybody these vaccines are all safe and effective. They're all good. You keep giving it to them. Now, think about that pediatrician who 30 years of their life have been injecting kids, watching this happen, but they're so blind to their religion that even when presented with new evidence, they can't face it, because for them, they almost like, well, I lived 30 years. I'm a pediatrician. This is what I identify as.
Mm.
But if I was wrong and I actually harmed all these children, oh my God, what is that legacy for me? I don't know how to identify as anything else. And the problem many times is a lot of the people on the left have lost God, right? They've lost their faith in the spirit side of it. And so if you don't have that moral compass, your ego mind drives everything. And your ego mind's driving it, you don't want to be wrong. But if you're spirit led, you go, hey, there's some new information. Let me be an effective listener and hear what the other person has to say, take it in, and with dialogue, in calmness. But that's an interesting fact. Based on the new information I received that I didn't know before, I too can change my mind. Do you follow?
Yeah, I
But
understand. I understand what you're saying.
the other side is like, nah, I don't want to hear it, I don't want to hear it. And then they start to melt down. And I feel that some of that has to do with the programming of how the left is programmed, And again, I always say to people, this is not the time of hate. Though for me, in my operation, and Charlie being my friend, there's a side of me that wants to put the pumpkin on and just go scorched earth, burn everything and everybody in that path, right? But that doesn't serve. I'm not reactionary. I'm responding in a way that is loving, that's kind, because what's happening right now is they try to silence Charlie's voice, but there's a million Charlies right now rising up. The fire and the fuel that this happened and that's been put in the gas tank of these young Christian conservative men who are loving. They're not toxic masculinity. They're loving. They're gentlemen. They're called to be the protectors of their wives and their children, of their home. And that's what we teach in America, right? Do the spiritual work, but then do the physical training and mental work that you have to do to be a soldier for Christ.
Mm. This brings me just to my next question, because you said Charlie was aware of the danger he's in. He was aware of the threats. How is the reaction now from other conservative politicians who were aligned with Charlie and who you do know? What is their reaction? Are they intimidated, or is it just another incident which will make them even fight harder now?
Well, I personally feel that it's just created a massive resurgence. Okay, what happens is when a person gets taken down dishonorably, right? He wasn't armed. He was taken down. He was murdered. He's a martyr, right? That right there there's a massive firestorm coming, and there's nothing going to stop it. The other part of it is that all of us in the personal protective, close protection, high level security, we've made peace many, many years ago when we stepped into this profession that our lives are at risk moment to moment.
How they are reacting? Yeah, are they intimidated, or is it? You said it's a surge now. They will even become stronger now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that there's a surge and there's a wildfire storm coming for the conservatives because we've signed up for this long time ago. The freedom of speech is not free, right? It as soon as you don't say what your spirit tells you, you slowly die, right? There's a conviction in every one of us. And when that window of opportunity opens up, you speak truth. You let spirit speak through you. And so in the conservative movement, we operate that way. And in the private security stuff that we do on the high level, we've signed up for this long time ago. We made peace with God, and we know that we're only here for a short time, right? But this is the time that God brought us here to do the work that needs to be done for where the nation is going forward and as where the world is going forward. And I don't feel the globalist plan on Charlie going to all the schools and having such a massive impact that it was instrumental in winning the election. That was one of the biggest movements ever transitioned across multiple college campuses. So yes, going into the midterm, Charlie was a massive threat. We knew the threat level was much higher. We run a highly sophisticated drone operation, which to me would have been that extra layer had he chosen into it, right? And he knows how we operate in that space, but we weren't on that detail.
Yeah. So you were not responsible for his security on that day, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you mentioned how big is the divide? Because here in Europe, we often hear about this divide in American society, especially now since Trump started his presidency. They said that the divide would be growing. And how important are the midterm elections in this regard? Because you were mentioning the midterm elections now coming. How important are they now for this movement?
It's critical because in order for Trump to complete and work on the mandate that the American people voted for, they need the next additional 2 years to complete that work that they just started. And when countries blame Trump, it's crazy that some of these foreign countries want to blame Trump for the fact that their own country has gone off the rails, and all that Trump is doing is shedding a light on where the problem is, right? And giving it back to the people. I don't have to agree with Trump on everything. I don't have to agree with Charlie on everything. But at the core of it, when it comes to faith, family, American values, and what's really good at the end of the day for humanity in the world, in the globe. I mean, my family's from Serbia, right? So I'm the first one born here. I know what my parents and family went through, and I travel back and forth many, many times. And I see how the students in Serbia are being manipulated without even realizing it, right? So places like Serbia and many other countries could use a Charlie Kirk to just make them think, what are you doing? What is your real objective? And do you realize that you're being played one side against the other side? Are you going to the West? Or are you going to the East? Well, wait a minute. Why don't you just stay sovereign? Because America's pulling out all the stops to take it back to being sovereign. Every country should have the same thing, right? Austria should have its own culture, its own stuff. It should not be influenced by flooding your borders with people that will never assimilate, that will not coexist with your faith-based community, right? Where you can coexist with others, but others may not be able to coexist with you.
Indeed, Steve. And one last question, because Charlie Kirk, he was a proponent of weapons. So he said everyone should have the right to bear arms. And he was even saying that the gun death in the US, so the people dying from gunshots, they are worth it. as the price of freedom. And he's now being heavily criticized for that. Now, after he's gone, he's still criticized. Isn't there a common sentiment that you don't talk badly about the dead? What is happening here? Because I've been observing this also in Austria, that people who are more on the right of the middle, when they die, they're criticized, and you normally never criticize people. You normally never speak badly about people when they are dead.
Yeah, so guns don't kill people. People kill people. And there's an issue to sit there and say, let's look at the mental issue, because America has some of the most highly prescribed, depression, anti-anxiety, mental medications that are with the label shows suicidal tendencies on it, right? So they don't want to talk about that and what medications this individual was on, or the fact that the transgender movement and what the mental issues are with that. Don't talk about that. What we got to do is take guns away. The only guns you'd be taking away is from law-abiding citizens, right? You think the criminal goes, oh, hey, there's a law and I can't get a gun. It's like telling a guy who's a burglar and you're like, oh, I'm going to lock the screen door. And the burglar's going to show up and say, oh my God, there's a screen door there. I can't rob this house. Mm-hmm. The mentality is so ignorant. For me in my world, I carry a gun everywhere I go, right? I carry a gun when I take my wife to the mall. I take a gun when I go to the beach. Yeah, when I surf, it's not on me. I get it, right? But every place, and sometime my wife many years ago was asking me like, why are you we're in a very high-end district. There's no crime here. And you're still carrying a gun on you. And I'm like, honey, these are all soft targets. The schools, the churches, the malls, the beaches, these are all soft targets. So the criminal, these guys are apex predators. They're weak. They're pieces of shit because they don't ever get confronted, right? But it's my job to protect my wife. If somebody would try to steal my car or attempt to murder my wife or rape my wife and children or do something like that, I'm not going to live with that consequence. I know that I'm going to unload that chamber. And if that's all I got, they're going to have to beat me with my own gun. So yeah, many people don't understand. And they're like, they don't like guns. You know why? Because they're unfamiliar with it and they see it as dangerous. But it's no different than actually having a pen in your hand. You could stab somebody with a pen, but this doesn't scare you, And some people will go buy a gun and they're like, oh, but I'm armed. Well, you can go to Guitar Center or the music store and buy a guitar. That doesn't make you a musician. Buy a gun, get trained. And as a father or a husband or a man, if you care about yourself and those around you, protect yourself, get the training, and be somebody who is stable and be a contribution in making the place a safer place. Because the only way that you look at these active shooters, the only thing that ever stopped them was a good guy with a gun. That's it.
Mm-hmm. So thank you very much, Steve, for your time and your interesting ideas you were presenting to us. I wish you a good time, a lot of strength also for the next weeks to cope with this situation. And yeah, have a good day. Bye-bye.
Yeah, and I just last thing, just tell your listeners, I would really share with your listeners to keep Erica and Charlie's wife and his kids in his prayers. I also ask that everybody just be calm. This is not a time to rise up and fight each other because that's what they want, right? Be peaceful, be vigilant, and have conversations, because Charlie talked about the conversation is what heals the divide. Don't get angry, be loving, be kind, because that's how you can message through to other people and break bread with them, invite them to lunch. And, we're going to heal this nation, because at the end of the day, it's not about America. It's really just about humanity and making this place a better place.
Mm. Yeah, it reminds me of a saying that as long as there is debate, as long as there is communication, it's good. When communication stops, then violence will come to the surface.
Agreed. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, Steve.
Bye for now.
FPÖ TV aktuell. Wir zeigen, was andere verschweigen. Patriotisch, direkt und ohne Zensur. FPÖ TV aktuell.